Good afternoon and welcome to RPG Storytelling. Today is Friday, February 26th, 2021, and we've got a lot of good, fun information to pass on to you today. Today is our Grain Prompts Live. We've got a couple of really fun and interesting grain prompts that we're going to discuss today, because today is basically the end, almost the end of our NPC month, which is a month we've dedicated to helping our dungeon masters, game masters, lore keepers, or whoever else is leading our games to develop fun and in-depth and interesting characters through character backstories. This won't be the end of NPCs, but this is just the first time we're doing a whole month dedicated just to NPCs. So, but before I jump into the grain prompts, I've got a couple of announcements that I want to run through. For those of you who have been around for the last few weeks, we have actually put together a brand new Discord community for every RPG or TTRPG player or enthusiast or whoever is interested in role-playing games, to help as a community, to help each other build and develop fun and interesting character backstories for the characters that we play in the various games that we play, whether it be Dungeons & Dragons, Warhammer 40k, Pathfinder, Call of Cthulhu, Starfinder, Star Wars, or the new Stargate SG-1 that's coming out, or any of the other role-playing games that are out there. So hop on over to our Discord. I'm actually going to post all of our socials in the chat right now, just so you'll have them available to you. The formatting of it's a little funky, but it's there. So that you can actually just click on a link and go straight to any of our socials or out venues, whether it be Twitch, which is what you're watching right now, Discord, which I was just inviting you to, our Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and also our YouTube, which is slowly starting to grow. I'm starting to get some more videos on there, but it's going to be a work in progress. Basically what I'm doing is I'm taking all of the live streams that are not Monday movie related or previously Tuesday movie related, and moving them over to YouTube so that you can watch them anytime you want. So, speaking of our Discord, I think it was a week or two ago, I had announced that we are actually going to be starting a brand new Friday game night. We've actually decided as a group that we're going to call it Questlandia. To kind of give that feel of going on quests, going on adventures, doing different things as characters. We're going to be playing on the second and fourth Fridays of each month, starting on March 12th. March 12th is actually going to be our very, very first game. We've got a great group of players that have volunteered to join us for that game. We're actually the game we're actually going to be playing on the 12th is called Magic Village for Sale. Don't want to give too much away, but there is definitely some Honey, I Shrunk the Kids vibes in this game. So you're going to want to come and enjoy all the hijinks that our players get up to in this game. But we also have a game on March 26th, which will be the Lich Queen's Begotten. It'll be a 68-hour adventure that you can come and join us for. We're actually currently looking for players for that game. So if you're interested in playing, hop on our Discord. Let us know that you're interested in playing the game or any of our future games. We can get you added to Questlandia, get you added to the game. We're looking for between 4 and 5 players for every game. And it's no experience necessary, very, very beginner friendly. We welcome everyone for every single one of these games, because we are trying to make this as much of a community event as we possibly can, so that everybody has a chance to play. So if you enjoy watching shows like Critical Role or High Rollers or Misclicks or any other live streamed campaign like that, this is your chance to join in on a game whenever your schedule may allow, and get a chance to play and have a chance to live stream a game. We can work out technical difficulties and everything else as we go through, but it's just a fun chance for everybody to get involved in these game nights, so we can make it a full community event. And then on April 9th, we are actually going to be having a guest DM run a game for us. Dr. Wyvern, who is probably in our chat right now, they will be leading a game called Erbil's Fools. It's a 3 to 4 hour one-shot adventure that is kind of in line with April Fool's Day, which would be like the week prior to when we play that game. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We're looking forward to having a lot of fun with these games. So come and join us either as a viewer or as a player. We invite everyone. So that's it for Questlandia. Speaking of games and developing characters, next Friday, March 5th at 4 p.m. right here on RPG Storytelling, we are actually going to be interviewing a really, really amazing friend of mine who is working on developing a character for a home game that I run, that she is looking to get help with building her character's backstory. I'm going to post her information here in the chat so that you can just click right on over and say hi to her and visit her channel. She's absolutely amazing, very supportive, very loving, and just an all-around wonderful woman. Her name is Brandy, by the way. But yeah, we're going to be, next Friday, we're going to be going through the process of actually helping her to develop her character's backstory for that home game that she'll be playing in starting in March, hopefully in March. So come and join us for that. Ask her tons of questions, give her tons of advice, and we'll just help her create a backstory using all of the grain prompts and tools that we have at our disposal currently. And we'll hopefully develop even more tools. So come and join us for that right here on this Twitch channel at 4 p.m. Pacific on Friday, March 5th. Dr. Wyvern wants to know if there were more of us in here right now, I'd suggest a raid. But alas, maybe at the end the two of us can pop on. Yep, at least the two of us will hop over there. If we get more, we'll definitely do a raid, even still. So yeah, we'll have fun. We'll give her all the love we can. And then I think, let's see, what else do I have for announcements? We've also got our Monday movies. So every Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific, right here on this channel, we do a movie watch party. This is just a chance for us to come together as friends and just have fun watching a movie together. That's really the entire purpose of Monday movie nights, is just so we can have fun together, talk to each other, get out of our isolation because of COVID, and just connect with one another while also watching a movie. Don't know what movie we're watching this coming Monday yet, but I'll let you know as soon as I possibly can. Probably either Sunday or Monday morning. Let's see, what else? And then the only other two announcements I have is that, let's see, Dr. Wyvern, I'm not sure if they do, but if they do have Shanghai Nights, I will definitely add that to the list and make that our second movie, or our next movie for this coming up Monday. So the last two announcements are the YouTube channel. Like I said, we're moving all of our live stream video on demands over to YouTube so that you can watch them anytime you want. We've got that link posted in our chat right now. And then the last thing I've got is I'm developing a full website for RPG storytelling, which will include all of our grain prompts, various blog articles that'll be written over time. There'll be a series of different templates and things that you can download to help you create your characters' backstories. And these will be updated over time, and we'll just get everything built. But hopefully I'll be able to launch that beginning of next week. So on Monday, I will put out announcements on social and Discord and everywhere else I can, announcing the actual website address so that you guys can jump over there and start visiting and patronizing the page and finding all the information that you can possibly find. So needless to say, I've got a lot of work behind that I've got to do this weekend to get ready for that. So anyways, let's go ahead and jump into our very first grain prompt that we're going to discuss today. With Valentine's Day just a couple weeks behind us, the first one I wanted to talk about is romanceable NPCs, or non-player characters that can be romanced by either other NPCs or by player characters. William Shakespeare actually wrote the line, "Wherefore art thou, Romeo?" As Juliet saying, "Where is my love?" basically. I changed it up a little bit and changed the name, but this line of romance and caricature, it leads one to imagine romance and the possibilities of requited love. There's a lot of things that go into relationships, and just meeting someone, while I personally believe in love at first sight, because that's how I fell in love with my wife at first sight, it's not typically a common thing. Usually it takes a little bit of time to develop that love and that relationship. So we're going to look at or a couple of different ways you can develop these non-player characters that are romanceable. It's hard to say, romanceable, that you can romance or build a relationship around in that romantic sphere. So designing these romanceable NPCs sounds like a pretty easy thing. You just put two people together and you got a romance. It's not quite that easy. It's not necessarily difficult by any means, but it's not necessarily that easy. To do it properly, in my opinion anyways, the romanceable characters need to have a life of their own before they ever meet the person or the player character that they're going to romance. But having that player interaction will definitely add to that character's backstory. So what you want to do first is develop the NPC as a standalone character. Could be a possible like barmaid or shopkeeper or some random character that the players are going to meet. It might be a character that is going to actually give your characters quests in some way, shape, or form. Or maybe this NPC is going to be a party add-on, meaning that they're actually going to go with your party and do some adventuring as well, or be a long-term ally of some sort. Or there's also the possibility that your NPC that's going to be romanced might actually be the big bad evil at the completion of the game, the penultimate villain of the game, if you will. So there's a lot of different options for building these characters to the point that you can start to see that they are real people, or fictionally they're real people, that your players' characters are going to interact with. So you want to develop these backstories for these NPCs so that they're living, breathing characters that can stand on their own outside of the... Hey, Serotonin, good to see you here. I'm glad you made it. So you want to develop these characters so that they're living, breathing characters outside of the relationship that they might possibly have with the player. After giving your NPC a life of their own, however, and with all the likes, dislikes, quirks, jobs, family, whatever, the next thing you want to do is to find a way that they can have a connection with that player character. So once a player character might start to show interest in this character in a relationship or romantic light, you want to start looking into your player characters' backstories. See if there's anything in your player characters' backstories. Hopefully they've given you backstories. If not, send them to us and we'll help them develop one. Anyways, hopefully there's something in your player characters' backstories that will be able to be pulled out and used as a connection for this romance, for this relationship. Could be things like they grew up in the same town, or maybe they both like peanut butter ice cream, or some seemingly intangible thing that you would think would be really odd to have a connection with. Maybe they've got a connection with this thing. You never know what it could be. Maybe they both have a huge desire to see a Tarrasque one day and just play with it and give it scritches. It could be anything, really. But what you want to do is you want to have fun with it. Try to find things that will keep a relationship going, to give your player characters something to work with. Because I like to look at it this way, that if your NPC doesn't have a backstory and your player has a well thought out backstory, that relationship probably is, hi kitty, that relationship is probably not going to go very far, because your player character has a whole bunch of interest, but there's nothing to back up that interest on the NPC side. There's nothing to keep the romance alive, if you will. So you want to be able to piece together things in your NPC's backstory that will help to create that connection and keep that connection going. You can look at it this way. In a typical romantic relationship, or I should say stereotypical romantic relationship, both partners have something to contribute to the relationship. They both have stories that they can tell each other to keep each other interested, or to help keep each other interested, and to provide that additional burst of life that is occasionally needed. Serotonin says, makes sense. Keep the players interested in the NPC too. Exactly. So you want to keep everybody interested in each other and keep storylines moving along, and provide ways for the characters to interact and to communicate with one another. There's a lot of different ways you can do this, in that you could have a full relationship develop between the NPC and the PC, to the point where maybe they decide they want to get married or something, or develop into like full boyfriend girlfriend, or girlfriend girlfriend, boyfriend boyfriend, or whatever combination happens to come up. And you can play around with these different things, so every time they get a chance to get back together, when the adventurer comes back to town, they can have these conversations. The player character can tell the NPC all about their adventuring, what's been going on in their lives, and things like that. Then there's also the option of having this full relationship develop, and then something horrible or something amazing happens to the NPC, and they're somehow taken out of the world, or taken away from the player character, so that they've actually got to go on a quest to actually find this character again. So you can develop different ways to keep these relationships alive, to keep the player character interested, to keep the NPC interested, because you never know what an NPC is going to do. Actually, I could change that up and say you never know what the player is going to do as well, because players are very unpredictable, which is absolutely amazing for DMs. But the fun really comes into play when you realize that some relationships just aren't destined to last forever. I included a little analogy here. Not really an analogy, it's more like an example. But in the movie Shrek, that came out in many, many years ago, the character Donkey, played by Eddie Murphy, begins and develops a complete, full relationship with a dragon. This is actually a scenario that has that I've seen played out, or at least heard about being played out in various Dungeons and Dragons games, where a player character will romance a dragon or enemy or whatever to get out of actually having to fight and maybe make a friend along the way. You never know. But in reality, when you come into these situations, those types of relationships are probably not going to last very long, especially if you have like a gnome bard, which bards are stereotypically known for being romantic fools or whatever. If you have this gnome bard that romances a dragon to best match in animation, I agree. This gnome bard romances a dragon. That relationship's not really going to go very far because they don't really have much in common other than the fact that they don't want to necessarily fight each other. Besides the fact that a dragon's probably going to get hungry eventually and may just eat the gnome bard as a tiny little snack. These types of relationships, while they're fun, they can last a very long time. They can develop meaningful relationships for your player characters. But they don't always succeed. They don't always last. Sometimes they fail horribly. It's possible that you might have a divinely good NPC that feels somehow slighted by your player character and instead turns into the penultimate villain of the entire game. You never know what's going to happen. There's so many different options. And here's an awkward transition for you. Speaking of villains, that leads us into our next grain prompt that we're going to talk about today, is developing ways to build convincing villains. There are so many different types of villains in role-playing games. I couldn't even begin to try to list them all, so I'm only going to discuss 2 examples of the tons that are out there. I kind of did a juxtaposition of 2 different types of villains. The villains that are seen as just like the thugs and brutes or low-level villains that have very small goals in comparison to the opposite end of the spectrum, which are like the masterminds, the big bad penultimate villain of your entire game. There are so many different levels in between those, but those are kind of like the opposite ends of the villain spectrum. So there are a lot of different ways you can play with these. You've got villains that are just searching for gold or local community domination, or they want to be head of the Thieves Guild or whatever. And then on the opposite end, you've got villains that want to rule the entire planet, want to rule the world, maybe become a deity themselves. So these are the different things you can kind of look at. We're going to start out with the low level or lower tier or minor villains that are usually encountered early on in the game, typically. You'll probably see a few of them later in the games as well, but mostly you'll see them in the lower levels. If it's a 20 level game, you'll probably see them levels 1 through 5-ish, maybe level up to 10 or so, but they're not the big bad of the game. So these villains are ones. Now, I remind you, I'm just using one possible example of a villain at this level. These ones could be just mean for the sake of being mean. They want to dominate a small little community or a small little community of neighborhoods or cities just for the purpose of having power, to just develop their riches. They don't really have any broader goals other than that. So the being mean just for the being mean, or just for the purpose of being mean, these kind of characters, while very viable characters, they can definitely add a lot of interesting things into the game. Over time, you will notice that these types of characters will get very boring very quickly. There's a very good reason why in most books and movies and TV shows and things, these types of villains that are just mean just to be mean, they don't last very long. They're usually considered to be thugs and brutes, so they do things in a cruel way just to be cruel for no other reason than just because they don't they only know how to express anger and hate or those types of emotions. So you can definitely add these to your games. There's nothing saying you can't, but just be cautious in how long you keep them around, because they can, like I said, they can get kind of boring after a while. You can actually, they can actually start to grate on your players as far as, can we just get rid of this guy already? He's already done. just go away. That type of effect. So you just be cautious, but have fun playing them. Nothing says you can't play them, so definitely have fun with them. On the opposite end of the spectrum, however, you have the criminal masterminds, or those that have huge goals that they're going after. Yes, Serotonin, they are more of a flat character, so they don't really have much depth to them. Whereas on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have the masterminds, or the penultimate villain, or the BBEG as they're commonly referred to. These characters, I like to refer to them sometimes. Sometimes they'll start the game and they'll be this villain all the way through. A lot of other times they'll be V's a rounded, fully fleshed out supervillain. Yes, makes sense. So Serotonin's character Vargas, I'm hoping it's not Vargas, but Vecna. How about Vecna? We'll go with Vecna being a rounded, fully fleshed out supervillain. But using like Vecna or other characters along these types of lines that have these broad, sweeping goals that include not just a small community, but a large community, maybe an entire continent or an entire planet or an entire dimension or whatever. These types of characters and these types of villains are ones that will do a lot of things that you won't expect. These are the type of characters that will have a lot of redeeming qualities as well, usually, that you kind of hate to love them, but you love to hate them at the same time. It's really weird combinations when you look at it. Yeah, Vargas is too kind and naive. So these mastermind level villains, you could kind of equate them to, say, James Moriarty in the Sherlock Holmes stories, who was a criminal mastermind, extremely smart, on the level of being able to convince Sherlock Holmes that he's not the villain, even though Sherlock Holmes knows he is the villain. So you kind of have to look at it as, is he the villain? Is he not the villain? Am I misunderstanding this? Then you kind of go back and start to see more of the things that he's doing as he's going along, and you start to see, yeah, he's the villain. Another option that you can look at is Thanos from the Marvel Comics and the Avengers. Thanos, he had broad sweeping goals, but he had noble goals. According to him, they were noble goals as well. So you kind of look at these things and say, he's got a noble goal. He's got the right understanding, but it's a very twisted understanding. So these are the kind of characters that I like to refer to as the ones you don't see coming. I'm not going to tell anything about my current game because I don't want to give too much away. But the kind of characters you don't see coming are ones that might start out as friends to your player characters, or maybe they might be a quest giver in some way, that they give quests to your players, and even though the players may not know it, they're actually working for the big bad evil villain at the end of the story. So they're doing all the hard work for the villain without actually knowing it. Yeah, no spoilers at all. So you can kind of look at these types of characters as being the friendly villain or the unsuspecting villain. The ones that you want to help early on in the game and then kind of betray you at the same time, without you actually knowing that you're being betrayed. So it's fun to look at these types of characters and say, how did I not see them coming? This all comes down to how well you can write that villain's backstory. So you want to be able to write the backstory in such a way that that they have those redeeming qualities, that they have or have the ability to develop full relationships of one way or another, or one type or another, with your player characters, so that, yeah, you can have a mid-level villain that is super dangerous, but has a way to make your characters like them, at least temporarily, or do work for them, at least temporarily, and then the players find out that they're the villain. It's like, no, let's go kill him instead. Jump into characters like Vecna, who was just, if you read back through his actual character story for Vecna, he was actually kind of abused as a kid, and then his mother was killed, and then he basically just went off the deep end as far as wanting that to never happen again, and went full evil. So his character arc went super evil really quickly. But then you've got characters, let's see if I can find a good example, like Thanos, who was a good person overall. He had his morals. He had his things that he chose not to do, and he wanted to save lives, but he had his wrong way of doing it, I guess, by killing half the population so that the other half could live. That kind of seems like a noble goal, but it's a very twisted way of going about it. So you kind of want to like him for wanting to save people, but you kind of hate him at the same time for killing half the people, and the things that he does to do all of that. So these are the kind of characters that you got to really watch out for, because you don't always see them coming. I used the example here of using Thanos as the example. If Thanos was played by Mickey Mouse, would you be afraid of them? I'm going to give you a chance to think about that. If Thanos was played by Mickey Mouse, would you be afraid of them? Let me know in the comments what you think. Would you be afraid of Thanos if they were played by Mickey Mouse? Let's see. Who is afraid of Thanos as played by Mickey Mouse? Anybody? Dr. Wyvern says, Mickey? Nah, but Goofy would be terrifying. Serotonin says, if he'd be believable. Yeah, if you can believe Mickey Mouse as Thanos, yeah, you might be afraid. Or you probably wouldn't, just because Mickey's too good of a guy. But now I'm going to switch it up for you and throw this in the comments as well. If Mickey Mouse was played by Thanos, how frightened would you be? How terrifying would it be to have Mickey Mouse played by Thanos? I like to see these answers because they kind of give me inspiration for my games. So what do you think? Would you be afraid of Mickey Mouse played by Thanos? Dr. Wyvern says, more weird than scary. They're both Disney characters. Serotonin says, agreed. Yeah, definitely more afraid of Mickey Mouse played by Thanos than Thanos played by Mickey Mouse. So yeah, these are the kind of juxtapositions you can have with your villain. If you have Thanos played by Mickey Mouse, you're going to start out loving the character. And then over time, you're going to start to see different things popping out that are going to give you clues that maybe this Mickey Mouse playing Thanos isn't such a good guy after all. Maybe there's something villainous about them. But on the other hand, if you have Mickey Mouse played by Thanos, you're going to start off with the horrors that Thanos is capable of being shown through Mickey Mouse, and you're going to start to see Mickey Mouse not such a good guy at all. You might have different qualities that you'll find that you like of the character, but overall it's going to be a darker character, whereas Mickey Mouse playing Thanos is going to be a lovable character that's going to go dark. So it's all in how you want to play your character. So that's really all I have for today's show. Does anyone have any questions about either romancible NPCs or developing villains? Any questions at all? I'm going to give it a few seconds here to see if any questions pop up in chat. Yeah, like Serotonin says, like Batman. Batman has a moral goals. He's got his morals that he follows. He's got a tragic story arc, and you love the things that Batman does because he is one of the primary heroes for the DC universe. But there's a lot of dark things about him as well that can be very scary about a hero. And the violence that he utilizes to subdue his opponents. These can be very, very dark things. But you still love the character of Batman. So yeah, it's a great example, Serotonin. Thanks. So any questions at all regarding romancible villain or romancible NPCs or villains? I'm going to give it a couple seconds here. If you got any questions, throw them in chat. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and end the show there today. Oh, Dr. Wyvern says, who is my favorite villain of all time? Oh, that's a hard one. Who is my favorite villain? You know what? Because Star Wars has been such a huge part of my life, let's see. Because Star Wars has been such a huge part of my life, I would actually have to say that Darth Vader is probably my favorite villain. Because you've got Anakin Skywalker, who starts out very unknowing. He's very good for the most part. He's got his little quirks that draw him a little more towards the dark side. But overall, he's a very likable character. He has that story arc that could bring such great promise for the good side of things. But he has that tragic moment in Revenge of the Sith where he does unfortunately flip over to the dark side. And for the rest of the original trilogy, I should say, for all of the original trilogy, he has that villain air about him. Everything that he does is on the villain side of things, as far as being the dark accomplice of the Empire, of the Emperor, the tool of the Emperor. Yeah, the Emperor was great too, but Vader was always my favorite because he has that full story arc from good to dark and then back into redemption. So he's got a full story arc, and you never know what's actually going to come until it actually happens. When I first watched Return of the Jedi back in '81, didn't really understand things. But as I watched the movies more and more over time, he showed off a lot of qualities that were very redeeming, but at the same time very dark, in the fact that he, like in Return of the Jedi, he brought his son Luke to see the Emperor and basically gave him to the Emperor as a gift, saying, "Here's my son, do with him what you will, turn him to the dark side." But after listening to the Emperor talk, after listening to Luke talk, after more battles, he eventually started to understand what he had given up before he turned, or as he turned into the dark side of things. So this is a character that went into life not knowing what to expect, and having different things turn against him so quickly. But he did find a redemption in the fact that he saved his own son, and then his son saved him at the same time. So it was a beautiful story arc that I absolutely loved, and I hope that more movies like that get made. So yeah, Serotonin says, so well developed too. We know his backstory is a perfect example from today's prompt. Thank you for that. Yeah, I'm glad we had that. Such a good story arc. And you're right, Serotonin. Villains are definitely made. They're not born. Unless they're Damien, which is basically like the devil's son. He was kind of born bad, but primarily villains are made. They are created, and not just straight out of the womb evil. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can play these different types of characters and write their backstories to give them these good story arcs that take them from a good life to a dark life, and sometimes back to a good life. So as you're going through creating your villains or romancible NPCs, just play around with what you can do with the characters and how you can create them in such a way that they are good and in-depth encounters for your player characters. So with that, I'm going to close out for today. Reminder that to join our Discord and help us build a community of RPG players who are looking to build better character backstories. Also, if you're interested in playing with us through Questlandia or being a guest DM, let us know in our Discord, and we'll get you added to the group and get you added to future games. Like I said, we've got Magic Village for sale on the 12th at 3 p.m. right here on this Twitch channel. On the 26th, we've got the Lich Queen's Begotten, which will start a little bit earlier in the day because it's a little bit longer one shot. And then on April 9th, we've got a guest DM, being Dr. Wyvern, who is going to be leading us in the game in the one shot Herbal's Fools, which is kind of a play on April's Fool's Days. So come enjoy those with us. Also be on the lookout for our interview next Friday, March 5th at 4 p.m. right here on this Twitch channel, where we're going to interview my good, extremely best friend, Brandy, who is an American witch in Brazil. And we're actually going to do a raid on her channel here in a minute once I close out. But let's see, I'm going to post my socials one more time for y'all, so you can just click on through. You don't really have to look for them. They'll just be right there as soon as I can get them copy and pasted. There we go. All right, so there's those. So feel free to follow us on Twitch, Discord, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and wherever else we can go. And like I said, hopefully by Monday I'll be announcing the launch of our brand new website as well, which will have so much fun stuff that you guys can enjoy. So until next time, I want to say thank you for coming to visit us. Thank you for all the amazing chatters. And if you go out, wear a mask, social distance, do everything you can to stay healthy and keep others healthy. And when you become eligible for it, make sure you get that COVID vaccine as well, so we can help get this virus knocked out, so we can get out of our houses and enjoy people again. So until next time, I want to thank you for everything. And I'm going to go ahead and get this raid set up if I can get things started. Open my web browser because I don't actually have it open yet. So give me a moment. I know it's in there somewhere. Where is it? All right, so I'm gonna post this in here so you guys can copy and paste this once we get over to Brandy's channel. RPG storytellers are here to invade. Let's see. I don't really have any emoticons yet, so we're going to use a couple of Brandies. I'm going to use that one, and that one, and that one. So make sure you copy and paste that into Brandy's chat when we get over there. And let me see, where is it? All right, so with that, yes, she is streaming. All right, so I'm going to say goodbye, and we're going to jump over to Brandy's channel as a raid. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.